This is gonna sound insane, but I legitimately think I found my most favorite fantasy ever. February wrap up, let's go. Hey book babes, I apologize for the ugly background. It has been a chaotic 4 months and I have not set up my bookshelves or anything yet, and I'm still not sure if I will soon enough. I really hope to do like a spring revamp because all of this is missing. Get your things or a cozy drink, or maybe you're gonna do your chores and just listen to me in the background. Either way, let's do this thing. Just like it's been a chaotic month, it's also been a chaotic reading month. Let's start with Real, which was featured in the video where I make my boxing coach read this boxing romance. And if you want more details, you can definitely check out that video so you can also see his reaction. As for my rating and my personal taste here, this was just a no. Hair is now tied back. This is probably and totally my fault. I thought that this boxing romance would actually have some plot. I thought we'd have had more and definitely like pining and everything, but this book was incredibly smutty. I was so embarrassed that I was making my boxing coach read this because I really did not expect it to be this freaking smutty. I am so sorry. If you love smut, like a lot of smut, you'll definitely love this book. When they finally do end up doing the thing, it is like insanely graphic details and chapters of this over and over. At some point it got repetitive. I didn't feel like the characters had any depth. I wasn't having so much fun with this book, and the writing was very chaotic to me. Like some of the things that the characters were doing position wise even just didn't really make sense. It felt like, how is that even logically like possible? I'm like trying to calculate things and I really shouldn't, because goodness. So I actually ended up giving this book 2 stars. It is one of my least favorite books, but it was fun buddy reading with him. That is probably what made this book really fun to read. Other than that, don't really recommend it. Of course, I was like super excited to try a fantasy book. It's been a while. If you noticed in my January wrap up, I didn't really have a ton of fantasy, and that is still the genre of my heart. I was really excited to get into the Hurricane Wars. I had not finished that book even though it was an arc. I am so sorry. And the FairyLoot edition we unboxed together on this channel was stunning. So I was super excited for this. Let me preface this by saying that I knew it was a Reylo fanfic, which is Rey and Kylo, who are adversaries in Star Wars. I'm not like opposed to it. I'm not like, oh no, I hate them, or like something on Star Wars. I'm not like the biggest Star Wars fans just because I've never watched them, but what I have watched, I was like, I could see this. I love a good enemies to lovers, okay? I love a great moment like that. I'm not opposed to that, and I'm not opposed to fan fiction. Really, I came in with like very open mind, clean slate. I was like so down for this. It was one of the worst fantasies like I've ever read, and that just pains me so much to say because I legitimately thought I would love it. I mean, come on, arranged marriage, enemies to lovers, a fantasy war. It has everything you would think would make this book epic. It was poorly paced. It made no sense. The events were just absolute mush. It was chaotic. For the first 25%, I have to tell you, I have no idea why she wrote that way, why these were choices. The world building was really confusing and it dragged out a lot. 2 main things when it comes to writing in this book. I finally found out what purple prose means. And purple prose means like an overly embellished, super lyrical, but to the point of its demise type of writing. So the writing is literally so complicated that it takes you away from the story and you're basically repeating yourself. I hope the example I put up here makes sense, but this entire book was purple prose. Mind you, I love lyrical stories. Y'all know this. I love magical realism. Rebecca Ross, Allende, Leslie Walton, they all write in lyrical forms, but it doesn't take me away from the story in a negative way. And I also don't feel like, my God, this is pointless. We've been here for like 10 pages or 10 chapters and it's the same thing over and over. And unfortunately, the Hurricane Wars had that effect. Second thing, the writing in this book is 100% tell rather than show. I think in like a good book, you want to have a mix of the two. And honestly, guys, writing could be bad, but the story could still be so great. The plot, the pacing still so good, which is technically a part of the writing, but you know what I mean. And I feel like a great example of this is Fourth Wing because, oof, y'all, I had issues with the writing and the dialogue in that, but the story and the characters and the dimension of the book was just so much better. To me, it outweighed the bad writing and for me that was like 5 stars. Like I was obsessed. I'm not like the snob that's like, oh, hello, your writing is just not good enough. I just legitimately think that this book was not it. It was very distracting in a negative way. And the romance makes no sense. Like I was promised like, I'm gonna kill you. I'm coming after you. We're enemies to lovers and we're in the enemy phase. I was expecting a lot of that, especially when like Alaric, who is Kylo or Rilo, whatever his name is in Star Wars, like he is literally taking over the entire galaxy, right? And we have our protagonist, Taliesin, who is sad. I mean, come on, like she's watching all her friends die, blah, blah, blah. And the book tells you it's been 10 years, so it's gonna take a long time for them to fall in love. I mean, come on, he's literally waging war against people she loves and like killing them and everything. And in half a scene, they fall in love. For some reason, even though he's the greatest shadow wielder of his era and this head of the military and it's a 10-year war, he doesn't kill her. He's literally there like, I don't know why I don't want to kill her, but I just won't. Make it make sense. I was so upset. I was like, this is not enemies to lovers. And the way I cackled when I saw someone's review say like, so in this colonizer romance, Yep, that makes sense, right? I mean, he is colonizing the entire galaxy, so I guess you would say it's a colonizing romance. It's just all the decisions the characters made really seemed like it was just there to push these two characters together, and that was really disappointing. If you're in this high fantasy setting, you want more complex plot lines and all of that. It was even worse because I had just come out of reading an insanely phenomenal fantasy. I can't wait to talk to you guys about it. Yes, in this video, that it just made the politics in this book so poor and the decisions in this book so bad. Oh, it was just really bad. I do have to say though, by 50%, I kind of like the romance. Like I was gushing a little bit with Alaric and Taliesin. Finally, by 60%, we had characters that made more sense and like their movements made more sense. And then again, it was just still downhill from there. Like nothing really changed. It wasn't super great. We get like a random spicy scene, and I kid you not, for 6 chapters, we were just stuck on their wedding. Are we or are we not in a war? Are we or are we not in danger? There's like the Hurricane War is still going on in the background, and Taliesin used to be a soldier, but now she's this long lost heir, which we all saw coming. He is literally the emperor of the Night Nation, and he's just here meandering around and like training with her and kind of into her, kind of not. I don't know if I trust this enough to move on to book 2, but the romance did get me a little bit. And so because of that, I ended up giving this book 2.5 stars. Maybe there's something wrong with me of why I don't really like this book, so maybe you can read it and let me know what you think, or if you read the fan fiction. I don't know, am I nuts? Maybe I'm nuts, but this was just no. Continuing my 12 Recs challenge from the book Instagram side, we have Never Lie, recommended to me by Jojo Reads on Instagram, and I will link all of that down below. She recommended me a thriller. This is honestly the first thriller I've tried. I tried a thriller horror. It really hurt my soul, like this one really graphic scene, so much that I ended up leaving that book and then picking it back up to see how it kind of finished, but it was really difficult for me to get through. Thriller horror, never again, I don't think so. But this was thriller mystery. Throw in a book about a psychologist, hello psych major, hidden tapes, and a missing body, a mysterious death. I'm in. I love stories told from like tapes point of view. Even in video games, I love stopping by and like reading all the little stories because you get to find out what was going on in the world before your protagonist is doing stuff in that video game. So I was living for it. I was binging through this and I had no idea I would actually fly through this book. Even though I flew through it, I feel like it was a disservice to tell me that the ending would be like insane and blow my mind, and I won't spoil it for you guys, don't worry. But I feel like because I've seen something like this done before, I wasn't really blown away by that ending, and so I ended up giving Never Lie 3 stars. But I am interested in reading more from this author, so I think Jojo did an amazing job of like convincing me to do more thrillers. Again, I'm all about trying different genres on here. You know, we are on this journey together, friends, and I really want to find more thrillers to read. I think some of you guys actually really like that genre, so if there's one that you're like, okay, you want to blow my mind, I think you'll really like this one, let me know. I'm really in the mood to try a mind-blowing thriller, and I actually might try Teacher or housemaid from this author. Obviously I can't tell you more about Never Lie, or I'm basically gonna spoil everything for you, but you definitely have to check it out because I think you might be blown away. Now switching on over to the YouTube side of Rex, we have Sam's Little Corner. Make sure you check out her YouTube channel, who recommended The Traveling Cat Chronicles. So that was the book she recommended for the 12 Rex for YouTube challenge that I'm running. It was such a short and sweet story, but it really made me cry by the end of it. I just wanted to hug my dog by the end of it and wonder, like, what are you thinking? I always wonder what she's thinking, but especially after reading this book, the way those final chapters were written, like the point of view and everything was just amazing. Now, what's funny is that I actually don't have a cat. Like, I've never owned a cat before. I think like a few friends that loved this book and read it and have cats were worried that it might not hit me as much as cat lovers. So basically Satoru ends up finding this cat, but the story is told from the cat's perspective, which I think is just super wholesome. They end up bonding and he ends up adopting this cat as his own. And then it fast forwards 5 years later and Satoru can no longer keep the cat, and we don't know why. He ends up putting Nana the cat into a van and himself, and they end up driving around to all of Satoru's friends to see if hopefully he can leave Nana with someone else that he trusts. And unfortunately every single friend isn't a good fit for Nana. But you also get to find out more about Satoru and his past, and other than the flashbacks, you see the book from the cat's perspective, from Nana's. It's a mystery of why Satoru is letting his cat go, especially when you can clearly see how much he loves him. As much as I ended up falling in love with the cat, I also ended up loving Satoru so much as a character and just a human being. His story really moved me so much, and if you're a pet lover in general, you know that animals have thoughts and feelings and can really understand us. And it really highlights that in the book. I really liked it. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I did think some parts were like, okay, well, I'm here, but I'm not like as emotionally invested, but by the end of it, I was very invested. Thanks, Sam, for recommending this book. It was like so sweet, and I'll definitely be recommending this book to other people and just get emotional damage as well. Moving on to my massive mass journey. By the way, if you're enjoying my spiel so far, you're not yet subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I have continued on to Crown of Midnight. And first of all, shout out to my wonderful friends and my 2 Chelseas and 1 Caitlin that I have over on Instagram, who journeyed with me on this book because they've read it, they love the series so much, and they're just there for my journey. And I was squealing over Crown of Midnight so much. So I basically read Throne of Glass, and Crown of Midnight is my 2nd book. My 3rd one will be Heir of Fire. That makes Assassin's Blade, the prequel, my 4th read. Do with that what you will. I know that people feel so strongly about the reading order, but I'm already invested, which is also so funny to me because a lot of people say that it takes them the 4th book to invest in this story, which is crazy to me. I feel like oftentimes we don't give a lot of books credit. If they don't catch us by the 1st book, we're not down anymore. But because Miss Mass is like such a popular author, where it's like, just move past the first 3 books and then you're finally into it. That's crazy to me. I've been into it since Throne of Glass. It like captured me right away, and Crown of Midnight was even better. My ships are definitely gonna sink. I've seen enough like little info, and I've been fortunate enough to stay away from major spoilers, that I'm pretty sure the ship I really want is not gonna happen. But that didn't stop me from squealing when it did happen in this book. I was like flying through this book. I have been pairing the actual book with the audiobook because I know it's so good that I'll want to like keep reading. I can't wait to move on to the next one, and I can't say much about it other than that because maybe you haven't read it either, and I'm not about to give spoilers on here. So it's just a little update on my mass verse journey, but I ended up giving Crown of Midnight 4 stars. I think I found one of my favorite YA fantasies. I actually got the arc for A Tempest of Tea. This author wrote We Hunt the Flame as well, and I have not read that one yet. And apparently, little spoiler, not spoiler really, Tempest of Tea also takes place in the same world as We Hunt the Flame. I don't think you have to read We Hunt the Flame to understand this, and it's not like a spin-off or anything like that, but I think it's pretty cool that it's set in the same world. Six of Crows. I adore Six of Crows. That is one of my favorite fantasies of all time. Like, I just love the characters so much. Kaz Brekker is my favorite. I adore him. And Tempest of Tea has a character named Arthi who is like the female Casbrecker, but her anger and her smartness is way more quiet, like lethally quiet, just insane. I love that book so much. And let me just tell you, Tempest of Tea requires such freaking intentional reading. I had to reread so many parts over and over, not because it was confusing, but because I was like, whoa, this is intricate storytelling. And if you blink, girl, you lost. You're done. You won't understand what is happening later on when things start getting revealed. This is a heist novel, but I would argue that that's not really like the main thing in this book. I did get an exclusive interview at the end with Hafsa Fazal and her husband, and she does say that heist story was really difficult for her to write. And I feel like you can kind of tell that's true. The heist wasn't really insane and like mind-blowing, but the author really makes up for that by giving us these characters that have so much unresolved trauma, and she really forces them to face that by the end of the book. So I would argue that's the real plot of this story. It really focuses on these outcasts that are super young and have somehow made a name for themselves, but the author also touches on a lot of colonization and racism in this book because Arthi was forced out of her home because of colonizing and all the bloodbath that happened because of it. When she opens this tea room, Spindrift, she really makes a name for herself. She finds her own family with Jin, who she calls her brother. I loved that dynamic duo so freaking much. And now the tea room is at risk, and so they have to fight against the Ram, this like super high secret society of vampires. You heard that right, there are vampires in this book. That was like really fun to read. The author really makes her vampires unique to her story. So now Arthi put together a little team for her mission, and of course there's a ton of betrayals, a ton of stuff that happens. There is that ending that's like, Fazal, that was so illegal. We need a book 2 right away. It definitely kept me so intrigued. I will say that some parts the author does make it sound like we should know certain history or like she's about to tell us, but she never does. So those parts were a little confusing, but trust me, that was like so minimal compared to the story as a whole that I was like, I cannot give this anything less than 4.5 stars. That was such an interesting read, and I cannot wait for book 2. And yes, you better believe I ordered a special edition of that book because I had a great time reading it. Y'all, I gave this next book a 6 stars out of 5, and that is The City of Brass. Okay, I am literally going insane with this book. I had no idea what people meant when they were like, this book is 6 out of 5 for me. Like, really? Something higher than 5 stars? Are you sure? Or is it just like 5 stars because it's that good? I get it now. I've never felt this way about a book before. I have found incredible 5 stars, maybe different types of 5 stars, but the way I experienced The City of Brass, whole other level. First of all, Olivia at Olivia's Catastrophe on YouTube is the one who recommended this book to me. Thank you so much, Olivia. This book was not on my radar, not because it's not popular enough. It was actually an early 2000s release. I was not on Instagram or YouTube. I would just go to Borders or my local bookstore like a normal book lover and see what was there, what caught my attention. I would not have known about this if it weren't for Olivia, and so I literally owe her my love for this book and my therapy bill as I continue this, because if my ship goes downhill,
I'm coming after you, Olivia.
This is the just where do I even start? This book is like so insanely masterpiece. It is just a masterpiece. The writing, the lore, the characters, the world building, the shipping, the complexities, the politics, amazing, incredible, phenomenal. The moment. If you have not read this book yet, you have to. If you're a fantasy lover, you have to. I've never experienced a book where I'm just like rereading the same scene 5 times over because I want to experience it over and over again. Like, there were some parts, some dialogues in here from some of my favorite characters that I was just like, she did not just say that. He did not just say that. I could scream about my favorite characters in this story all day long. I'm so glad the series as a whole is done and out, because I would be really livid right now if the books were just barely coming out and I had to wait forever for book 2 and for book 3. Now, if only I could get my hands on those Fairy Loot editions, or at least the UK editions, because I want to own my own copies so bad. So we follow Nari, who lives in Cairo. She is like this swindler, but she has this secret gift to heal. She doesn't believe in magic until one day she accidentally does call upon a warrior who is like super insanely intense and obviously really rude and mean. And she finds out that jinn are a thing, so you get to find out all about the lore of jinn and gods in this secret city called the City of Brass, or Daevabad. And through that warrior, she finds out she is part Deva. She is mixed with human, that's why she lives in the human world. And there is a lot of history with her mother's family, okay? Because her mother is the one who has divine blood. She obviously didn't know where she came from or anything like that, so this is like mind-blowing to her. And now she has all these like crazy people called Irits like coming after her. I know the story sounds insane, and the warrior Deva named Dara is trying to get her to Daevabad because that's the only place she's gonna be absolutely safe. Meanwhile, we also switch over to Daevabad to focus on what is going on there. The City of Brass may be wonderful and amazing, but it is not perfect. And we get the insight of this world through their prince, Prince Ali. Ali is finding out all these things about Daevabad, but his dad, the king, is obviously like ruling all, wants to keep peace, even if that means oppressing people who are mixed with Deva and human. It is a multi-perspective book. You mainly get Nari and Ali. I ended up loving Dara so much. You don't know much about that journey because you're mainly focused on Ali while they are journeying to Daevabad, but you do get to see Nari and Dara bond over those 3 months that they're traveling across the desert to get to Daevabad. I feel like the book as a whole is done so well. I didn't feel like, okay, this is out of the left field, now I'm like in a whole new story. It just felt like seamlessly bled into it, that by the end of it I was like, I just read like 10 different books. Some authors would have literally made this book like a 10-book series. Thank you so much to the author for not doing that and writing a spectacular book. It is extraordinary. I did not think I would find a fantasy book that would like top all other fantasy books, but I'm telling you, it's my experience with this book. It's the way I enjoyed it, the way I wanted to like binge it but force myself to slow down to thoroughly enjoy reading it for the first time. I paired this with the audiobook, but I swear this one guy was staring at me while I was in the car, jaw dropped, like rewinding it like 5 times, and I was just like squealing at the stoplight, like banging on the steering wheel. He did not just do that. I experienced this book at a whole other level. I loved it so much, and this is exactly why I love the 12 Recs challenge. Like, I tried a thriller, I tried this beautiful fiction cat book, I found my favorite fantasy of all time, 6 stars out of 5, all because of the 12 Recs challenge and pushing myself to read different genres and different books that I normally wouldn't pick out, that weren't already on my TBR. Thank you to all of you for suggesting this book. A special shout out to Olivia for introducing me to my favorite book of all time. I cannot stop talking about this, and I probably won't, and you'll probably hear me talk about this like 1,000 times until you read it. And so there's nothing else to say, you guys. I think I have reached a whole new level of reading hood. Thanks for listening to my chaos. I hope I made sense. Please tell me if I did not. Thank you so much for geeking out with me, whether in the comments or over on Instagram. I will catch you in the next video. Bye!